Dolls. The earliest dolls were for the dead. Found in 3,000-year-old Egyptian tombs, they were called board idols or paddle dolls and were made from flat pieces of wood carved into human form. Wooden or clay beads were used for hair. Facial features and clothing were painted on. Board idols were buried with adults as well as children. Their purpose was to accompany the deceased on their journey to the spirit world. This custom replaced an earlier and much more grisly one, burying slaves alive with their masters. The belief was that the slaves would continue to serve and protect their owners in the afterlife. In 700 BC, Greek and Roman children played with jointed clay dolls. With iron pins to give them movable arms and legs, the dolls were primitive action figures and could also be used for plain dress-up. By 300 BC, children had soft dolls made from brightly colored knitted wool or fabric stuffed with dried grass. When Greek and Roman girls were old enough to marry, usually 13 or 14, they gave their favorite dolls to statues of goddesses. In Rome, it was Venus, the goddess of beauty. In Greece, it was Diana, the goddess of purity and hunting. This was symbolic of the young woman giving up the possessions of childhood for those of adulthood. Adult Romans kept ancestor dolls. After a family member died, a likeness of the person was carved from wood and placed on the fireplace mantel with other such dolls. From there, it was believed they watched over the household, protecting it from harm. At mealtimes, the ancestor dolls were sometimes brought to sit at the table, and small dishes of food were placed before them. Many Asian countries of the time had their own versions of ancestor and funeral dolls, as well as soft, jointed dolls for play. The Japanese also had friendship dolls. Most often, these were given to people visiting one's home for the first time. Perhaps the most unusual Asian dolls were those used by Chinese doctors as late as AD 8. Only men could be doctors at that time, and because it was considered improper for them to examine women, a curtain separated the physician and the female patient. On a porcelain figurine, the woman would mark the area of the body that was bothering her, hand it through the curtain, and then discuss her problem with the doctor. During the Middle Ages, AD 400 to 1500, many dolls were religious in nature. In Europe, they were of the Christ child or the Virgin Mary. At about the same time in Africa and the West Indies, voodoo dolls were used in religious rites based on sorcery and the casting of spells. The Hopi and other Native Americans created kachina dolls, personifications of spirits believed to carry people's prayers to the gods. Another interesting type were fashion dolls. Beginning in the 14th century, women in different parts of Europe sent such dolls to friends to show new clothing styles. Queen Anne of England ordered the earliest set of fashion dolls on record from France in 1391. Not until the 1600s in Germany were baby dolls manufactured on a large scale. Most were wooden. People usually bought them unclothed and then sewed clothing for them at home. By the 1800s, Europeans and Americans were making dolls from a wide range of materials. Porcelain, wood, plaster, wax, and paper mache, or paper pulp, were all used. Miss Isana Walker of Rhode Island made hers of stiffened fabric. In the 1840s, she became the first U.S. manufacturer to mass produce dolls. During this period, she invented a machine for pressing layers of glued cloth together and molding them into a lifelike shape. By the late 1800s, many dolls had glass eyes that could be opened or closed by pulling a string. Some had hair made of wool or animal fur. More costly were those with human hair, which had to be sewn into the head with a hot needle, one strand at a time. Eyelashes were added in the same manner. The overall result was a doll with a jointed, padded body covered with soft, skin like fabric. During this time, most dolls were infant baby dolls, and their primary purpose was to help prepare little girls for motherhood, for feeding, clothing, and otherwise taking care of newborns. The famous French author Victor Hugo even suggested that the first child a woman has is a continuation of her last doll. By the 20th century, dolls had been invented that could talk, walk, or even dance to the tune of a music box inside their bodies. More and more were being made of rubber, celluloid, or plastic. In 1910, American artist Rose O'Neal created the Kewpie doll using her baby brother as a model. The comical little doll, like its real life counterpart, always had a tuft of hair at the top of his head. Such dolls were given as prizes at carnivals, fairs, and amusement parks. During the same era, U.S. companies began offering dolls as advertising premiums. For a given number of box tops or labels, kids could send away for Aunt Jemima, pancake mix and syrup dolls, or Campbell Kid dolls from the Campbell's Soup Company. From the 1930s on, comic books, movies, and television shows gave rise to character dolls. Such dolls were made in the likeness of well known political figures, entertainers, and cartoon characters, such as Donald Duck, Batman, and Zorro. Barbie, what a doll! Introduced in 1959, Barbie was a hit from the start, and she soon became the top selling doll in the history of the world. Ruth and Elliot Handler, who founded Mattel Incorporated after World War II, were intrigued that their daughter preferred making her own dolls out of pictures of girls cut from magazines and dressed in a variety of trendy outfits, also cut from magazines. Instead of a make believe baby, Barbie was a young adult, feisty, pretty, and ready to take on the world. Immortalizing their daughter's name, they called it the Barbie doll. In 1961, the Handlers came out with a boy doll, Ken, named after their son. Expecting a sales ratio of 5 to 1, they were pleasantly surprised to find out they were 2 to 1, one Ken for every 2 Barbies. Barbie has been a flight attendant, an astronaut, a singer. She is a new age girl with unlimited potential. Rivaling Barbie's phenomenon are American Girl dolls. First created by a Wisconsin woman, the lifelike 18-inch dolls depict American girls throughout history, from our earliest days to the present. Kirsten, she's a strong and spirited pioneer girl. Felicity, a spunky girl living in Virginia just before the Revolutionary War. Kaya, an adventurous Native American beauty growing up in 1764. Addie, a courageous girl escaping slavery in 1864. Kit, a clever, quick-witted girl growing up in Cincinnati in 1934. And then there's Josephina, Nellie, Julie, Kanani, and so many more, each doll showing what life was like for preteen girls coming of age during different periods of American history. First produced by the Pleasant Company in 1986 by educator Pleasant Rowland, the dolls are sold with accompanying books told from the viewpoint of the girls they represent. And, as with Barbie, A wide range of outfits and accessories are also available, historically accurate, of course. The word doll comes from the Greek word for idol, eidolon. In America, the earliest dolls are thought to be those found in Aztec graves, all predating the conquest of Mexico in the 16th century. Mama dolls, invented in 1824 in Germany, were the first talking dolls. Chatty Cathy, introduced by the Mattel Company in 1959, is far more talkative. When her string is pulled, she blurts out such things as, "I want a drink of water," "Let's play house," or "Please change my dress." Queen Victoria of England, 1819 to 1901, played with dolls until she was 14 and became queen at 17. As an adult, she collected dolls and sewed clothes for them. On a whim, she would give dolls to friends, visitors, servants, even to people on the streets, usually children. Penny Woodens were jointed wooden dolls popular in the 19th century. Queen Victoria's collection included more than 100 Penny Woodens. Cabbage Patch Kid dolls with a plastic head, yarn hair, and soft, huggable bodies were a huge but rather short-lived fad in the 1980s. Production could not keep up with the demand, and fistfights broke out in stores between potential buyers. They were the concept of Xavier Roberts, a young artist who envisioned a magic world in which dolls grew in fields like cabbages. In Iran in 2002, Barbie was a bestseller despite its $40 price tag. In a country where the average monthly salary was $100. In the same year, Iranian toy makers came out with their own version of the dress-up doll, one with a traditional Muslim wardrobe. Barbie's official birthday is March 9th, 1959, the date she made her Doll World debut at the International American Toy Fair in New York City, which means Barbie turned 75 in 2014.